This is a new video series called Writer to Writer, where I, Jack Wallen, if you don't know me by now, you probably don't want to know me by now. I am going to talk to other authors about the process and business of writing, mostly the process, because that's the real interesting part. I think that readers would love to get into the minds of us authors, to know how we work and how we create. So my first guest is a dear friend of mine who I've known for quite some time. I've collaborated with. I have slept with in hotel rooms in separate beds, of course, and shared very intimate stories about my life with. His name is Brent Abell. And say hello, Brent.
Hello.
So we're going to kick this off with a simple question. And this is probably going to be the same question that I ask every author that comes into this layer. And the question is, what is your writing process like?
Oh, chaos.
Chaos. That's probably a good way to describe many of them.
I sit down and I've floundered back and forth between, am I a pantser and right by the seat of my pants, or am I better plotting out and then going from there? Sometimes I'll just do a little bit of both. Any more process wise, like once I have the idea, I'll sit down, kind of do just a rough, like here's a couple of points, here's a couple story beats I want to hit, and then I'll just sit down and let it go organically from there. Let the characters take it, let my attitude of the day take it.
Right. Oh boy, I know that. You can always tell that something big has happened in my life or in the life of the public by reading little snippets of my book, because something will have happened that day and I feel for some reason compelled to comment on it in my writing. And sometimes it makes it in the final draft and sometimes it doesn't.
Oh, sometimes it takes me long enough to get through a final draft. I got to take it out because it's like, man, that probably happened a year and a half ago. Nobody's going to know what it is.
How long does it take you to write the first draft of a book?
It really varies. Let's see here. I'm almost done.
What was the fastest book you ever wrote?
Probably Death Inc.
Okay.
Start to finish on just the first draft on that one. It's just shy of 40,000 words. It probably took me about 3 months.
Okay.
There was just something about that book that once I got into it, just clicked, and I never had to force any of it, or it was probably the most flowing outwardly of a story of a book that I've written.
That's what happened with the one I just finished last night. It was as if something kind of took hold of me, and there was no thought. And I was one of those books, because I don't know if you ever experienced this, but sometimes you'll be writing a book, and especially when you're pantsing that book, you'll kind of write yourself into a corner, and then you step away from it. You're like, I have no idea what I'm going to do now. How am I going to get my characters out of this mess or whatever? And then you have to take a step back from it and figure out what to do. And then you're out for a walk or whatever, and then it hits you like, oh, that's what I need to do. That never happened to me with this book. It just happened, the whole thing.
Yeah, really. Yeah, that never happened. Everything for Death Inc. was just, there was no moments where I was like, what do I do now? Everything just flowed. Everything ended well. The other book I'm finishing up right now, though, that's been another story.
No, okay, tell us about that.
Armand Rosamia allowed me to write, because I'd written a short story in his dying days world. So he let me play around in his dying days world a little bit. So I wrote a first novel in it called Death Sentence. And I kind of left it open. It's like, all right, so there was going to be a sequel. I told him it was probably going to be 3 books. And he gave me his blessing. The second book, Zealot, I got so far in and I'm just like, I almost felt like I lost it. So I had to just put it aside. I felt like I was forcing everything too much. Nothing seemed natural with how it was coming out. And I had to I put it away for, a few months. Because in the process, I was able to write the short story for Disquieted and things. And I've come back to it now that I've put it aside, come back to it, rearranged a couple things. It's going a lot better now, and it should be done soon.
Now, do you find when you're writing a book like that, and the first half of this book, it's drudgery, and it just it feels like the process feels like 2020 as a year, and you just feel like you're never going to get through it. And then you get halfway through and you go, I got to step back. I got to step back from this. And then you go back to it, and all of a sudden it's all flowing. Do you find that the book feels different from the first half to the second half? So you have to go back to the first half and tweak some things to make it feel like the second half?
Yeah, this one I'll probably go. There's probably going to be some things in the first half to get rewritten, just based on how much easier everything was in the second half.
Yeah.
Just to kind of match the flow better, because I can tell exactly where I stopped and put to the side, and then where I picked it back up again, because the voice is totally different, the flow is different. So yeah, the editing process is going to be a bitch, because there's going to have to be a lot of rewriting in that first half.
Right. I had a book once, actually. It was iZombie. When I first wrote that book, I decided for some stupid reason I was going to write that book in first person present tense. And I contrived all of these different ways, because as I was writing, and I came into the situation where all of a sudden the main character was fighting a zombie. And I thought, how in the hell is he telling this story in present tense while he's fighting a zombie? How is that possible? So that I thought, okay, we'll do a recorder and all this other stuff. And it was like every turn I took, I had to invent some new way to make it to legitimize that point of view. And then I remember I submitted it to some place, and I can't even remember what the publisher was, but they turned it down. And later on, they came back to me and said, "We really regret turning this down. Would you be willing?" I said, "No, I don't." But anyway, I sent it to another editor, and the editor said, "You need to rewrite this. Let's rewrite it in first person past tense to make it easier." I was like, seriously? I mean, and this was like the fourth or fifth book I'd ever written. I'm like, you're going to make me rewrite this whole book? So it was a nightmare to rewrite that thing. But, in the end, it was the right choice, because first person present tense is not something for a new writer to take on.
You just didn't like yourself at the time.
Yes, that's exactly what it was. I was in my S&M phase. And I hired a dominatrix as an editor.
It was like, man, I feel like getting flogged today. I'm going to go write.
That's pretty much what it was like. It really was. So, and then I spent a lot of time after that writing books where the main character was always first person past tense, and then the bad guy was always third person past tense. And I've pretty much settled on to first person past tense now, but it makes it a whole hell of a lot easier for the rewrites, because I hate rewriting. I absolutely abhor rewriting.
I agree.
It's one thing when it's just edits, because most of the time I defer to my editor, because the editor's the pro in that area. But when the editor says, "Yeah, you need to rewrite this," I'm like, "Oh God, why don't I just forget? Let's just forget this book. I'll go write something else."
I'll just start on the next one. Here, you want this?
Right. So what's the hardest part of the process for you?
Oh, the hardest part of the process. It's not necessarily the ideas.
Mm-hmm.
It's I have a note file on my phone, and I'll just like sit there. It's like if I see something odd or just some weird thought will pop into my head, I'll just like a couple sentences of like, maybe this is the opening sentences of the book. This is kind of the idea. And then the problem is you can't get to them fast enough.
I know.
It's like, I don't have enough
crazy.
time.
I had somebody on Facebook the other day say, hey, are you ever going to get back to this series? And then right after that, what about this series? You going to get back to this series? I'm like, I'm going to get back to, what's that?
Was it Phoebes?
It was. And bless her heart, the thing is, what was wonderful about that, it was like, I really do need to get back to that because I really enjoyed writing those. But at the same time, I've got this open-ended series for Devil Dog Press. I've got to write the second book on that right away. And I have, just like you, I have this file full of these ideas. And it's like, the ideas come faster than I can get them out. And, I don't know about you, but it used to be that there was one point in time where I was writing 7 books a year. That time is long ago, and that's never going to happen again because my
I just want to
process
get 1 or
changed so
2
much.
done in a year.
Yeah, I think that's more reasonable, honestly. I think when back then in the day when we were cranking out that many books, I think the quality was suffering. And I was having to constantly go back and revisit those books and polish them up after they were published. And then I realized I can't keep going like this. I've got to slow down. I think this whole thing has been a learning process for all of us. And it's a good thing that we're all still learning.
Oh yeah, if you stop learning, you just need to stop because this is a never-ending process.
You're right. I learn something new every day, whether it's about my process or about the business, about marketing. Well, we're never going to know enough about marketing.
No, the thing that drives me nuts is I'll learn something and I'll change something. Like I'll figure something out and just be like, man, I really want to go back now and apply this to everything else I'd written in the past. But it's like, man, I can't keep rewriting. It's like, it's not feasible to constantly change everything you've written.
When I was doing those live readings a few weeks ago, I was going back to some of my older stuff. And as I was reading them, internally, I was cringing a few times. I'm like, oh man, what was I thinking? And it's like some of my pet peeves that I have now, I didn't have then. And the editors that I was using back then didn't have the same pet peeves, because I think it's really important to have an editor that shares your pet peeves. And so I'm reading these books, I'm thinking, I need to go back and change this stuff. And then after the readings are over, I'm like, I can't do that. Because I feel pretty strongly about this. I wrote those books at a specific time in my life, and they represent that specific time in my life. And if I were to change them, it'd be doing them a disservice. And it wouldn't be the same story. Just the other day.
I disagree a little bit. I'm actually going through the process now of just, I've kind of gone through this, like, there's a lot of things that I've learned and I'm just little small tweaks through some of the old releases just to clean them up a little bit.
Oh, sure, of course.
Just because it's become kind of obsessive lately. I've had to tell myself, it's like, no, stop.
Yeah.
Bad.
Right. Well, that's the thing, it's one thing to go back and go, I'm going to go back through this original manuscript and tweak a few things. Like one of my pet peeves that I have developed over the years is using repeated words. I hate that. I try to not repeat, especially obvious words. I try not to repeat said the same words within a paragraph or two. And going back through some of my older stuff, I do that frequently. And my urge is to go back and rewrite those, because that will be a simple thing to do. But at the same time, if I were to go, I don't do this whole first person and third person point of view anymore, so I'm gonna go back and rewrite everything in first person, I can't do that.
Oh no, not that far. No, but I went back and reread some of the older, because I'm also gearing up because I need to finish the Southern Devils trilogy.
Right.
Because I promised the family that I would do that for them, and it's like I haven't. It took a while to get myself in a position to do that, because the main character that I wrote about, in the series, he committed suicide,
Oh,
and
yeah.
it's been it's been really hard to get back to finish that series to kind of give him the send off that he needs.
Yeah.
And it's like, and finally the family got in touch to see. It's like, are you going to finish that? I'm like, yeah. So I've been, because it's been so long since I've really done anything with the first two books. It's like I needed to go through and, reread real quick and see where everybody's at
Right.
the end of everything, so I can go in.
Right.
It's like, and I'm sitting there and I'm reading, and I'm like, why did they let why did they let me use began start? Why did they let me
Right.
So like, something like that. Yeah, like I'm not gonna do like change voice names. It's like something like that. That's the real thing. I can go through
Yeah.
just rewriting a couple of these sentences, and
Yeah.
because it's one of those. When I first started writing, you really don't. Yeah, he began. Oh, he
Yeah.
started,
Yeah.
and I was like, I can go
Yeah.
back and change that, take that
Yeah.
part out of it,
Yeah. Yeah. I
just
don't
kind of
know a
brush it up
single,
in that manner.
right. I don't know a single new or young author that really gets the idea of active and passive.
It's a learned
And
experience.
it really is. It really is. And it's a painful one too. Because the second you think you understand it, you don't. And then you finally, eventually, you go, okay, now I get it. And now and to, if I were to go back and fix active and passive issues in my earlier books, I probably may as well just pull my hair out right now and
Just burn the manuscript.
yeah, yeah, exactly. So that's not going to happen. But something you said a moment ago, when Phoebes asked me if I was going to go back and do another book in my steampunk series, my first thought was, I'm going to have to reread it. I'm going to have to reread both books because I don't remember it. I remember the gist of it, and I could read the blurb and go, oh yeah, but you know that doesn't cut it when you're trying to write a third book in a series, when you have to know everything.
And I
And
was
I
like,
know some authors
where
that
did
keep a
he leave
Bible.
off at? Where was this
Right. I know.
person at the end of the second book?
Right, exactly. I know some authors that keep a Bible of their works, of their series, where they keep all of the details in it, but I'm not that person, because I
Oh,
every single thing I write is so off the cuff that I can't do it.
well, the problem I know I found myself in recently is it seems like everything I have going right now is a series.
Hmm.
I'm finishing up my entry into the Dying Day stuff, the Southern Devils, the Death Inc., and
Hmm.
it's like there's a couple my White Creek books. It's like there's a couple just like singular books I want to get to, but
Yeah.
it seems like I can't because I feel like I need to finish and wrap up because a couple of the series are pretty close to like where I can just wrap them up and be wash my hands of them and be done for a while. But
Right.
yeah, I need to get to that point first where I'm washing my hands of it.
I hear you. The book that I just finished last night, I was certain that it was going to be a one-off. And the more I got into it, I'm like, when I finished that book last night, I was like, I'm not ready for this to be over. I not only needed to write this book just for myself, but I enjoyed it so much. Like, I've got to figure out a way to make this continue. And then when I ended it last night, I was like, that's how it continues. I know how to continue this now. And sometimes we just have to, and I know that I don't want this to come off selfish or sounding selfish, but sometimes we just have to do something for ourselves, you know, because especially horror authors, when you're writing horror constantly, if every so often you got to go, I need a break from this. I got to write something fun and fluffy.
See, that's what Death Inc. was. It ended up being more kind of a dark comedy
Yeah.
than anything, and I just planned it just as kind of a one-off.
Yeah.
But then it's like by the time I got to the end of it, it's like, man, I had a lot of fun writing about Milo's misadventures as a Reaper. So it's like,
Right.
yeah, I kind of left it open ended, and then I ended up having a great idea for a second one. I just
Yeah.
need to start it. I've promised myself I won't like ADHD this until I won't start
Right.
on that one until I get done
Yeah.
with. It's like,
Right.
all right, it's like my carrot at the end of the stick. I got to get these
Yeah.
done before I can get this.
Yeah. I had I had someone ask me uh, ask me what is going to happen with the second Fear book. And I'm like, I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen with it. because that's not how I write. But you want to have the answers for that. You want to be able to say, oh, you're going to love what's going to happen. But it's like, I don't know. You'll know when I know.
What's funny about the Southern Devils is whenever we were at Scares That Care,
Yeah.
I was talking to Chuck Buda, and he was like, "Yeah, I remember talking about." And I was like, "Yeah, I had messaged you about. I'd read the Southern Devils books, and I had a question." And I was like, "What's that?" He go like, "Have you ever thought about doing it in like other timeline, like other like historical periods?" And I'm like, "You were the one that planted the Revolutionary War seed." It's like, I hate you.
Yeah.
Because it's like, so I actually did based on talking to Chuck. It's like I wrote myself a back door in the second book.
Oh, good.
To where should I ever want to take it beyond the Civil War era, I can. I don't necessarily want to, but in case I ever want to go back to it, I kind of wrote an out into there to where I can, and it still be feasible.
Yeah. Well, sometimes you have to do that, and in my suicide series, at the end of the second book, all of a sudden I'm realize that I'm writing my metaverse. It's like two different universes that I had already written had come together in that second book. And I was like, okay, I'm all in. And I know that when I write that third book, it's like every universe I have written is going to wind up in this book. So I keep going, I don't think I'm ready for that yet. It's like, I got to get to that. But it's like, oh, that's going to be an undertaking. I don't know. Because then I'm going to have to know.
You don't want this to be your Dark Tower?
Right. So, okay, so we're coming to the end here, and I want to give you a chance to tell anybody, number one, what you've got coming in, what you've got coming up, and your best piece of advice for other writers. And where they can reach out to you.
So it's like the best piece of advice for other writers is always sounds so cliche because we all say the same thing. It's like,
well, say
write all the
that no one else
time,
has ever said.
read all the time,
Right.
Write what you want.
Right.
Drink while you write.
Drink while you write. There you go. Advice from the sage.
I have a bottle of homemade green fairy that gets me through sometimes.
Yeah. See, I don't drink. That's my problem. Sleep deprivation. Just go.
See, that works too. When you can hallucinate, that's great.
Right. That there is a point in time as a writer, after you've written for a long enough time, where you start to think, I understand why so many writers back in the day were doing absinthe and opium and all that. It's like, because so you feel like you've got to get in touch with something other to really dive in deep enough to the craft. And sometimes root beer and pretzels just isn't enough.
All right. This will be a serious piece of advice. Depending on what you're writing, like if you want to get the feel, like, man, if I'm like in a tense, I know I'm going to be going into a tense scene. It's like, man, if something just totally pisses me off that day, that's the time to go.
Right. Oh no, I agree.
That's the time to go hit the keyboard.
Yeah, it's like a Stanislavski for writers. Sorry to drop that little actor hint on everybody. So, what do you got coming up?
I'm finally getting ready to put Death Ink out in paperback. I'm getting it prepared now because I finally got in touch with we finally worked with my cover guy and we got some stuff done.
Finally.
In the Middletown Apocalypse series of books, my novelettes were like in the same universe and the story. I've got a omnibus of those 4 stories coming out. It's like 50,000 words of zombie goodness. And then since I guess there's no more Middletown books, I'm going to have to write some stuff to finish it up on my own.
Yeah. There might be another one, but I think it's going to be a different genre.
And that'd be fine.
I think I've always wanted to do like real sci-fi, like out in space sci-fi.
Oh, that sounds
I
fun.
think I think that's what's going to be the next Middletown.
That
I've
sounds
just got
fun.
to I've just got to find, because I'm not in contact with a lot of sci-fi writers. I need to get in touch with some sci-fi writers who are, you know, quality enough and no drama and you know, they don't have to be actual sci-fi writers. They can be any, you know, people that we know and trust. But once I get that together, we can throw one, you know, because those were a lot of fun to write.
Oh yeah.
So
Well, then there's the Disquieted
yeah,
anthology with the
that's
two
fun.
of us, Sean
Yeah,
Cochran and Dylan Brown.
yeah.
Oh, so then I'm finishing up Dying Day Zealot.
Mm-hmm.
So hopefully that'll be out by the end of the year. Yeah, it's like
Yeah,
after kind of a lull, trying to get things ramped back up again.
yeah. I hear you. Well, I
And
did too. I had to take a break.
pray for sales
Yeah. Oh, well, yeah, I know. I hear you. So where can people find out more about you?
at brentabell.com.
Okay, and that's
Or
Abell.
that is right, Abell.
That's a good way to remember it.
And then from there, there's Twitter links, Facebook links,
Blah blah
every
blah blah
links.
blah. Yeah, and search for him on Amazon.
That's right.
Well,
And if
thank
you
you,
buy
Brent, for
something, leave
yeah.
a review. Anything you buy,
Please,
leave a review for
please.
anybody, good or
Yes,
bad.
yeah, we need it desperately. I don't know what happened. I don't know what, because for a long time, you know, 5, 6, 7 years ago, people were constantly leaving reviews, and then all of a sudden, they stopped, and I don't know why.
I mean, even if you're on Goodreads, go just leave a
Yeah,
starred review. You don't
yeah,
necessarily have to type out a review, just a starred
right.
review.
And it doesn't have to be a work of art. Just say, I like this book. Anything.
This book was awesome.
Whee! Slap your picture up there with a thumbs up. This is what I think of that book. No, this is what I think about that book. How about that? Raw. I think it should be. I think they should do a new starring system. It should be based on metal bands. Like the top one you could get would be Guar, and then the bottom would be like Nickelback. I give this book one Nickelback or
No,
Iron
Iron
Maiden.
Maiden. Iron Maiden's the top, man.
Okay, not baby metal.
No, no.
I
Well, how
knew
are
it.
you
I
not
knew it.
wanting Devin Townsend at the top?
It's I. It's you know. You get used to. It's just like back in the day when you know being a Rush fan. It's like the minute you say, you know, way back in the day, you'd say Rush, and they'd be like, huh? You know, when I say Devin Townsend, people are like, who's that? You know, everybody knows Iron Maiden. You know,
True.
so nobody knows Devin. Well, Canada knows Devin Townsend.
Well, I don't
America
know if
doesn't know Devin.
I honestly don't know if there's a lot of people in the mainstream that would know Gore. There'd
That's
be
true. You're
some.
right. Yeah, yeah. And if they did, mostly they just knew of the costumes. They'd never heard
Yeah.
a single song of theirs. It's like Danzig. I know about Danzig. I have a Danzig T-shirt. Have you ever heard a Danzig song? No.
Wait, didn't he do that Mother song? Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah,
that
right.
was it.
Yeah,
That was it. Yeah.
yeah. That was Glenn Danzig, not Danzig. Anyway, well, thank you, Brent, for doing this. I hope that we'll continue this series. If not, you and I had a nice chat.
Hey,
If
as
all else
always,
fails.
man.
So remember, brentabell.com. Go to amazon.com and search for Brent Abell or Brent Abell and look him up, read him. He's a great writer. He's a great guy. You know, he gets two devil horns up.
Hey, you get him back, man.
Woo! Thank you, Brent.
Thank you, Jack.
Have a great day, man.
You too, man.